Hey everyone, welcome back to an Insomniac's Insight. This is my 7th episode, I believe. It's been quite a while, actually a long while, since I've been able to talk to you guys. I think the last episode I made was before the start of the new year, and after that things got kind of, I wouldn't say hectic, but my schedule got thrown off quite a bit with the way things were, trying to adjust to how everything's been fitting into the new year. Just wanted to say that I hope you guys had a great start. I know we're already in the second month of the new year, so hopefully your first month went as best as it could. I know a lot of adjustments and things like that, especially for, people like myself who had a lot of things happen at the end of the last year, so they had to kind of readjust and regroup when it came around to the new year. So hopefully you guys had a great start. Those of you who are going to school still, hopefully it's still working out for you. Things have been kind of adjusting for you here and there, getting used to the new subjects, the new professors, or whatever the case may be. So hopefully that's working out and you're kind of getting the hang of it now that it's getting into the second month. Those of you who are, working at new places or something like that, hopefully that's working out. I know it takes a lot of adjustment to get into a new line of work. It's never an easy thing to try to adjust to something like that. So hopefully that's working out for you. For those of you who are like me, in between jobs and looking for jobs, don't give up. I know it's kind of hard. It kind of sucks, especially for me. I've been looking for a job here for a while now, ever since my last one. And it's kind of difficult to, I guess, stay in the mindset that you want to keep looking, especially after you've probably applied to tons and tons of jobs and you're not really hearing anything back, but I just try to look at the better side of things and say, well, since I haven't heard anything back, at least I haven't heard no, so maybe there's still a chance, but just go ahead and look in all avenues, check out things you might never have considered before, because you never know where those things could lead you to. So, hopefully everything has been going as good as it can be. I know things can always go better, but then again, things can also always go worse. So today was kind of more like like an update kind of video, I guess you could say, or maybe more or less just me kind of talking with you guys kind of thing, since I actually have a bit of time to talk to you guys today. It's not much, but I feel like it's better than nothing. And I've just been having a lot of random thoughts, here and there. During the day, at night, wherever I am, whenever I'm doing something, or sometimes when I'm doing nothing, I haven't been able to really record at night like I've been wanting to. I kind of just jot down my ideas here and there. I usually have some other things going on that I wasn't able to control, or I don't know, sometimes I just feel like I don't have enough info on what I want to record or what I want to talk about, and that I just want to kind of get a better, well-rounded thought about it. But even right now, I feel like I don't have a lot of info on some of the topics that I've kind of considered. So I've been debating on whether to talk about them yet or not. So those will probably come up in another video. They'll probably be a little bit shorter, as compared to, some of my other previous episodes. But I feel like they're just things that I want to talk about. But today, actually, I didn't really have anything set in mind. I've been doing a lot of different readings here and there. I've been reading up on old authors that I used to read a lot. Recently, me and my girlfriend had been going to buy books a lot. It's one of the things I love to do, is I love to read. I can never get enough of it. And I stumbled upon a whole bunch of works from Edgar Allan Poe, H.P. Lovecraft, let's see who else, like Stephen King, just classic authors like that. I've always grown up reading the horror genre and the mystery and suspense type of genre. That's kind of what got me into writing, because I actually do write scary stories and stuff like that. So I feel like I don't really take a lot of inspiration from them. I don't base my stories off of them, but I feel like if it wasn't for them, or authors like them, I wouldn't write like them, or wouldn't have had the same passion to write in the sense that I do. But recently I've been reading a lot of mainly H.P. Lovecraft and Edgar Allan Poe, because those are two of the authors that I grew up with the most. I would always just be the weird kid in class who would have his big ass books, and one of them was always H.P. Lovecraft or Edgar Allan Poe, and none of the other kids would pay me much attention because they thought those were too dreary and depressing and yada, yada, yada. So I always thought that it was something interesting for me because that's what I grew up with. So I guess when I was in the store with my girlfriend, I was really happy to stumble upon a couple of those books. So I bought a couple of them. They're really cheap. I bought them from Half Price Books. So that's also a good thing because I remember me wanting them when I was little, or I guess not little, younger. You know, I'd read them from the library and whatnot, and then I'd want to buy them so I can keep them on my own. And, you know, me and my parents would go look and they'd be like $15 to $20. And me as a kid, when, you know, all the money I would get was from like basic allowances and stuff like that, I didn't ever save enough to buy them. So it's kind of different now to be able to buy them on my own. And I think I bought one of them for like $5. And that's just kind of amazing to me that all that time I wanted it when I was little, I could never buy it. But now it was like buying something, it's cheaper than buying something to eat. But anyways, one of the main things that I guess comes from H.P. Lovecraft's type of writing that I've been thinking about lately is nihilism. I know it's not directly related to H.P. Lovecraft per se, but I feel that nihilism is a thing that plays a part in why his stories are scary in a sense. You know, some of his stories, not all of them. I know all of them are different. But I feel like one main aspect that has been sticking out to me lately, I guess, not just in his stories, but just that I've been kind of seeing here and there from a lot of things that I like, which is kind of weird, but is a nihilistic way of thinking. You know, for those of you who don't know, nihilism, in a sense, is more or less the rejection of like any type of beliefs or principles. You know, so some things that make up life important, it's kind of rejecting those things and saying that that life itself is in a more, I guess a better way to put it is meaningless in a way. So think about all the things that you hold valuable. Nihilism goes against that and says that they really don't matter. They're just things that we make up in our own minds to kind of give existence a meaning when there really isn't one, or there really shouldn't be one because of the way that meaning is meant to be. It's kind of confusing when you first think about it, but I know I've been reading about that a lot from Nietzsche, who was a very big proponent of nihilism, more or less. And I remember seeing a couple videos that I just happened to stumble upon that go over nihilism in different forms. You know, there's like cosmic nihilism, there's traditional nihilism and stuff like that. And I know for some of you who may or may not watch, you know, Rick and Morty or BoJack Horseman, which is stuff that I watch, and they have a lot of nihilistic tendencies in them when you think about it. I know that's probably one of the things that they shoot for. You know, in a way it kind of makes things funny. You know, you don't give a shit about anything, so you do whatever you want, and since life has no meaning, it's funny to some people, you know. And I guess that's just the way that they want to make you think about it. But you know, when you think about some works from H.P. Lovecraft, he talks about these cosmic entities who are humongous and overbearing, and honestly could give a shit less whether you are or aren't here. You know, it makes you feel so belittled when you think about it as a whole. And that's kind of the same thing that comes from like a perspective of, like, say, Rick and Morty, where Rick thinks about the whole prospect of things being that there's so many infinite realities, so many infinite possibilities, and things that are beyond the human comprehension, that it doesn't matter what you do or don't do, because in the end, the only person it affects is you and you alone. And even then, it doesn't even affect you in the greatest way possible, because it's happening infinite times over in either a similar or non-similar way that you'll never know of or never even get the chance to understand. So think about the notion of you believing in religion here. You know, might be a big proponent to you, but then in another reality or another possibility, you don't believe in religion, and yet you're still the same way. Like, as in, you're still living life, you're still prospering or not prospering, or making a difference and not making a difference. And no matter what kind of values you hold, it really doesn't matter as a whole. And I think that's something that, in a way, to some people or to most people, is kind of sad, kind of, you know, in a way depressing, because it's like, well, then if nothing matters, then what's the point of me trying to make meaning out of something and all this and that? And I wanted to see if there's actually a way to kind of turn that into saying that, well, yeah, maybe in a nihilistic way of thinking, it doesn't matter. But then again, if it doesn't matter, then why does it bother you that it doesn't matter? I know that's kind of confusing to say in a sense, and more or less is like a tongue twister, I guess. But if you think about it, if it doesn't matter, then why does it bother you? You know, if religion doesn't matter, why does somebody or nobody believing in what you believe in or don't believe in bother you? If somebody believes in marriage, why doesn't it bother you? If you don't believe in, I don't know, people have all kinds of weird beliefs, to be honest. You know, so why would that kind of thing bother you, that people do not believe in that? And I guess more or less it's a sense that from a nihilistic point of view, it's more centered around yourself. And when you think about it in a more or less sense, people are meant to be beings of interaction, beings of cohesion, beings of, I guess like a togetherness. So I don't know if you've ever heard of that saying, misery loves company. So in a nihilistic way, you know, that person will singularly think that nothing matters to them, life is meaningless to them. But in a sense of it, they want to bestow that same belief upon others, so they won't be the only ones seeing that life is this way. So kind of in the way that you might have viewed it from, like, I don't know if you do or don't, but in Rick and Morty, there's a thing where Rick is always trying to convey to everybody else that life is meaningless and it has no purpose. You know, it's happening infinite times, infinite possibilities, infinite realities. So why should you care? But in the same sense, almost every other episode where he's complaining or conveying that, he's also trying to get other people to believe the same thing. You know, he's trying to turn Morty into the sense that he needs to understand that it doesn't matter what he does or doesn't do, because if they just reality hop, it won't make a difference. Same thing to his daughter when his daughter has, you know, problems of what she should or shouldn't do. You know, he gets her to believe the same thing. Or not gets her to believe it, but tries to make her believe that or see that from his point of view. That once you realize that nothing matters, you can take reality for a ride and do whatever you want to do. You know, that's just what you're capable of doing once you take that into your own perspective. But in a nihilistic way of thinking, that's essentially a belief. You believe that nothing matters. You know, so how does that kind of fall into the same realm of nihilism if in a sense you have a belief that nothing is believable? I don't know if that makes sense, but I guess it's just something that I was thinking about as I saw a lot of these, you know, these kind of videos and these other articles and stuff that I was reading, just because they kind of piqued my interest on that. And I wanted to know your guys' thoughts as to how that makes sense. And do you think that we as people make our own beliefs? I mean, of course we do. You know, we choose what to believe and what not to believe. But do you think that is just more or less us giving a way to cope with what life really is? Or is it more or less that it's giving us a thing to hold on to so we can find meaning in life? Because if you think about traditional nihilism, that's the more or less sense that you're always looking for meaning. You think that everything you come across doesn't have meaning, but everything you come across, you kind of want to see if you can make it into giving you meaning, you know? That's more along the lines of, I believe when I was reading the certain things of BoJack Horseman, that he feels like he's failing at everything, but yet he still wants to try, whereas like a cosmic nihilist feels like literally it doesn't matter if you try or don't try, like nothing will fucking change. It'll always just be the way it's going to be no matter what. You know, so there's two separate ends of the spectrum, but they're both nihilistic tendencies. It's just that one fumbles for meaning, one doesn't care if there is a meaning or isn't meaning. So what is the thing that makes them what they are? You know, what then gives them purpose? Like I said, you know, with more or less the traditional type of nihilism, they look for purpose. They look for trying to see why religion should matter, or why science should matter, or why relationships should matter, or why this should matter, why that shouldn't matter. And it's kind of like a more or less sense of never being satisfied with the answer that you receive, I guess is the way to put it. And then if you think about it from, like I said, cosmic nihilism, it's just that everything is so great. There's so many possibilities. You're one tiny speck on another tiny speck that is just absurdly huge. And therefore, you don't affect anything that goes beyond your immediate realm of thought. So then why should it even be a bothersome effect at all? Why should it affect you? Why should you care how it affects others? Why should you care that you can or can't do this? Just do what you want to do, and it doesn't make a difference. And I was thinking about that because I know for those of you who have heard my previous podcast, I say that it doesn't matter. You should always try your best to make a difference because, yeah, you might not make a difference as a whole, but it makes a difference at least to one person. So I guess if you think in the sense of nihilism, making a difference to one person doesn't make a difference at all. And that's why I guess it kind of makes me think in the sense of why do people think like that if you can have the potential to help somebody or do something for somebody and all this and that, but people think, or some people who have a nihilistic way of thinking may think that it wouldn't matter if I give that person $1. It wouldn't matter if I help this person cross the street. It wouldn't matter if I donate to the church. It wouldn't matter if I donate food. It wouldn't matter if I volunteer at an animal shelter or a homeless shelter, and they're thinking in the way it doesn't matter in life at all, while as a person, I guess like myself possibly, thinks that, yeah, it doesn't make a difference as a whole, but at least it makes some kind of difference. So I guess, in a sense, it kind of goes against with what I kind of say. So that's why I guess it kind of gets me thinking. I guess I just want to share my thoughts on that type of thing to see what you guys think about it as well, because this is just how it makes me think. It makes me see things or makes me understand things. And I guess that's why I love reading stuff like this, philosophy type aspects, because I love to question things. I love to figure out why things are the way they are. And I love to read things like that. Like I said, reading these type of books, they kind of give me that certain perspective. But there is always going to be something so much greater than myself that I probably will never be able to understand. And I'll never have the chance to understand it. And me trying to understand it is more or less me trying at nothing. But then again, if I don't try at it, then I'll never have the chance to know that it did or didn't work. I guess if that makes sense. So in a sense, it kind of not only makes me think, but it also gives me a reason why I should still try to do the things that I do. I should still try to write. I should still look for a job. I should still do this podcast. I should still try to find something that I want to do and something that I feel is right for me. So I guess in a sense, it can make you think that I shouldn't think that way, if that makes any kind of sense at all. But I don't know, I guess I remember me, like a lot of people when they're younger, they kind of think that, oh, nothing matters and life is meaningless and life is pointless. So I guess in a way, a lot of people go through their own nihilistic ways of thinking, per se, in a sense. Not full-fledged nihilism, but people have that kind of notion to think that way. So that's why I guess it's kind of something that I wanted to ask you guys, because in a way, all of you have thought like that or had some realm of thought in that type of way. And I want to know, how did it affect you? What did it make you realize, or what did it make you change? Because I know for a lot of people, when they're younger, they might follow along with, what their parents say as in reference to religion, politics, goals, jobs, careers, yada, yada, yada. But when they go through those different ways of thinking, that's kind of when you find yourself and learn what you really want. You don't want to be in this religion. You don't want to have this political point of view. You don't want to be that career choice. You want to make your own choice. And in a way, that nihilistic way of thinking can be kind of freeing, because it shows you that it doesn't matter if I go along with my parents or my family's traditional beliefs, because I can have my own. I can be my own person. I can make my own thoughts. I can go where I want to go. I can say what I want to say, and I can believe in what I want to believe in. So that's what changes for a lot of people when they go through that I wouldn't say phase, I would just say portion of life. Because in a sense that, for me, I know I used to believe a lot in religion. I went to a religious school. I was in a private school when I was younger. And there was just a lot of things that we weren't actually led to believe it. In a way, some of us were kind of, I wouldn't say forced, but more coerced to believe in certain things because of the way that, the nuns and the priests were with us. They were telling us how bad kids do, and if you're a bad kid, you're gonna go to hell, you're gonna go do this, or you're gonna displease God and stuff like that, right? That's just kind of the traditional things that they would do, at least as far as from what I can remember. And I wouldn't say that kind of pushed me away, but as a kid, it kind of makes you think that you're not afraid, but skeptical of, well, if I'm gonna have all this bad stuff happen, why did God create this bad stuff? Why is there all these bad things when God's supposed to be this way and that way? Like I said, I don't want to offend anybody's, religious beliefs or anything like that. And, because like I said, that's what I grew up with as well. So, not to offend anybody's, religious beliefs, but as a kid, it just makes you think that you're being afraid of somebody that's supposed to love you dearly, and unconditionally. But then again, it's not his fault. It's just the way that they convey the message, more or less. So I guess that's another way to think of it. It's kind of the conduit that is coming from that person's just portraying it in a more aggressive way than you'd expect as a child. So, but I feel like as I've grown older and, have all this exposure to all kinds of other things and mixtures of people's way of believing and thinking and foreseeing things the way they do. I've had friends who are Muslims. I've had friends who are Buddhist. I've had friends who are Christians. I've had friends who are, Lutheran, all kinds of different religions that as a kid I didn't even know existed. I just thought that everybody was, more or less Catholic Christian type thing. And because that's just what I grew up with as a kid. But then, when I went to middle school, it's a completely different world. Everybody was different. Nobody was the same way as when I left, my elementary school. It was kind of like a wake-up call that it doesn't matter if you're bad. People are bad all the time, and it kind of makes you question. It makes you think that all this time you thought everybody, all this time I thought everybody was the same. Everybody was trying their best to be on their best behavior and all this and that, trying to please their parents and God and go to church and be, angels, all this type of thing, right? But that's not the case for everybody. So it kind of made me wonder that why do people act differently? Why are people different than me? Why do they have different beliefs than I did? That's what it made me realize, made me think of when I was younger. And it's something that I never anticipated because it's just something that I had always become accustomed to, So I feel like as time has progressed and I've gone through, middle school and high school and college, I've been exposed to like a lot of different religions, like I said, and then also a lot of ways of thinking by different philosophers and stuff like that I've encountered through the educational processes. I learned that a lot of people question God. A lot of people question a lot of things about Him and about what it really is, and not just God per se from Catholic Christian religion, but also about Buddha and every single religious aspect there is out there. There's always questions, and I think it's because people want to find the truth. People want to find meaning and stuff like that. They want to see if they can validate it or invalidate it, and sometimes you just don't know which one's scarier: finding out that there is a God or finding out that there isn't. For whatever religion you are, finding out that there's a higher power or that there isn't. I think also one of the things that made me realize that was my girlfriend, she still takes her classes and everything like that. One of her assignments that I remember her showing me was there's a way that some people try to approve or disprove God. And one of them was saying that either there is or isn't God because of the fact that a higher power needs to exist or should exist or it won't at all. Because if you think about it, either God has already, or I wouldn't say God, but a higher power, a higher entity has existed and will continue to exist throughout the entirety of existence itself. Or that higher power does not exist and could potentially be created to become a higher power. That sounds a little bit confusing, but if you think about it, something is either already going to exist or it's going to exist because it's going to be created. But when you think about it, a higher power, a higher entity, something like a God or a eternal being cannot be created if it's supposed to be the creator, right? So it's kind of the notion that you can't create God because in a sense of thinking, God is supposed to be the one that created you and created everything. So when you think about it, either he does already exist and has been existing all this time, or it doesn't at all. And you won't know that. There's only the definitive belief that either it already is or it never will be. And that's something that I know I had seen that before, when she showed it to me, but looking back on it gives you a new train of thought, like I said, in reference to when I was looking up and, going over stuff about nihilism. That's kind of way it gives you the sense of either things do matter or they don't matter because you have to be held accountable for them or you don't. The beliefs and values that you try to go through and live your life according to are going to matter to that person or to that higher entity, or they won't, because there either is one or there isn't. And that's kind of, I wouldn't say scary. I mean, I guess I don't find it scary. I find it interesting. But I know to a lot of people, they find it interesting. They find it hard to believe. They find it hard to take in. They find it hard to kind of cope with. And it's pretty interesting that people might think of that in that way, instead of trying to embrace it and say that can make you, or not make you, but that can push you to live your life in a better way, per se. Because at the end of the day, like I said, either it does or doesn't matter, but it does make a difference for you and for everyone else around you. Immediately, yes. So, whether God or any other higher entity does or doesn't exist, and you'll never know that until, everything comes to an end, but it allows you to do what you want to do if you do or don't believe in him, or the higher entity, per se. Because it can push you in the wrong way, it can push you in the right way, but it will always make a difference to you as you are now. Yes, in the end, if there is nothing there, it will not make a difference at the end. But just as I've said in previous episodes, I feel that, yeah, everything does have a meaning at the end, but sometimes you have to live for the meaning that you have now, because that's what you're here for right now. You're here to try and experience things and learn things and make things change as they are now. You want to make an impact now. You're not necessarily looking for the impacts of later on, the possibilities of what could come later on, the ramifications it could lead you to being later on. So if you always think about, well, it doesn't matter what I do because there's nothing at the end, and it turns out there is something at the end, you can't go back and change that. You can't go back and try to be a better person. Like I said, depending on what religion you believe in, you can't go back and try to fix things that you maybe had second thoughts about, but you just went ahead and did it anyway because that way of thinking said, you know what, it doesn't matter anyway. So if you live your life according to the point that it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter, that's very redundant, I'm sorry. It shouldn't matter that it doesn't matter, because the only thing that will ever matter in your life is what matters to you, not what everybody else thinks, not what everybody else said you should think, and not what everybody else is trying to get you to think. Whether you have nihilistic thinking or don't have nihilistic thinking, if you're an optimist, if you're a pessimist, if you're a realist, you can live your life according to that way of thinking for yourself. Don't be swayed into thinking that, my friend says that, based on this, I should think this way. And it didn't matter anymore. Like, everything that you thought mattered to you doesn't matter anymore just because of something you read. Like me, I've been reading up on all this nihilistic thinking, and I know other people might be prone to falling into those ways of thinking just because it makes sense, It makes sense that I shouldn't believe in things. It makes sense that nothing really does matter because in the end, I'm just going to die anyway. But then again, sometimes just because it makes sense doesn't mean that it makes it right. Because, hell, I've heard a lot of people lie and they make clear-cut sense, but then in the end, it's still wrong. Not saying that nihilistic thinking is wrong, but just to a person who is maybe being persuaded to think that certain type of way because of somebody else, I feel like, you can take bits and pieces and stuff like that from all kinds of ways of thinking. Like me, I understand different notions of nihilism. I understand different methods and ways of thinking from stuff that are optimistic ways of thinking. I understand certain concepts of religion and stuff like that and how they are to be applied. Like I've gone to church a few times and, I don't necessarily say that, just because I go to church, I fully believe in religion and God and all this kind of thing, But more or less, when you listen to the stuff that they say, it's kind of me listening to somebody who has a philosophical way of thinking that it can affect you as a whole. Not necessarily that the whole miracles and, stuff like that are something you can go about thinking in that kind of way. But more or less just the train of thought they're trying to get you on is what matters the most, because I feel like I've thought of a lot of things one way, and by looking at other avenues, whether it be from different types of philosophers like Aristotle, Plato, or like I said, Nietzsche, and then I've also looked at something similar if I look at it in a religious sense of the way of thinking, and you kind of understand where this person's coming from, where that philosopher's coming from, where this preacher's coming from, and you build your own sense of thought and your beliefs and your morality. You can make it your own. That's kind of what every philosopher, what every great thinker does. They look at what everybody has to offer and they say, well, wouldn't it make sense if the part that this person says kind of coincides with the thing that this other person says? And then you connect them and it's like, well, shit, nobody ever thought of thinking it that way. Not to say that that's what I'm trying to do, more or less, but I feel that's the way I think about it. I think about that, I look at everybody's way of thinking, or everybody that I've researched and watched and heard or read, and I don't take it full force. I don't take it into account 150% that I'm only going to think nihilistic way or I'm only going to think a religious way. I kind of just look at it and say, well, do I feel like that makes sense? Or maybe that doesn't make sense completely, but maybe this person saying over here kind of makes it make more sense or less sense. Just so I can kind of make my own train of thought and see what I think is right. But that's why I'm saying it's kind of unique to every individual. Every individual has their own way of thinking. They have had their own way of thinking and they will only have their own way of thinking. That's just the way life works. So the thing is that I kind of feel that if you're like me and you're overly curious, you're overly wondering what the hell you're supposed to be doing here, I feel that looking into stuff like that is something that can be helpful, but don't, like I said, don't kind of go fumbling for answers and then the first answer or the second answer that you find, or just because you like the way this one says something, don't just take it as the only answer, because I feel like with life you're supposed to have multiple answers, because there's more to life than just one or two things that maybe one or two people had to say. Just in the same sense, like I said before in other episodes, that people don't believe in ghosts, or people don't believe in certain types of supernatural creatures, or that certain things can go a certain way with life and death. There's people who believe in reincarnation, there's people who believe in an afterlife, there's people who don't believe in an afterlife. Kind of in the same way that people believe from my culture about Dia de los Muertos, that, you can still communicate with your ancestors after they're dead. And there's people who don't believe in that at all, but they might believe in it in a different way, Like I said, for my culture, it's Dia de los Muertos. And, we can communicate through leaving offerings and, the flower petals and everything like that for our loved ones. But then you have the other people who say it probably doesn't work that way, yet they're the type of people who are willing to try out Ouija boards, which is still a way of communicating with people who are dead or are no longer here. So I feel like when you look at things on the surface, they're kind of, I guess, you can kind of pick them apart. But when you dig deeper, that's when you can connect them. You can pick pieces and look at things and say that this is the way it's supposed to be on the surface, and that's why it doesn't make sense, or does make sense, like I said, comparing one religion to another. But then when you dig deeper and you see what they're getting at, not just the miracles, not just the, saving people, not just becoming a prophet and saying that all this stuff like that, when you look at what they're actually trying to tell you, what they're actually trying to show you in reference to life and what it means to be here, you will see a lot of things that you never thought you'd see before. Like for me, I said, I just would always, in my younger days, I would always take things as they were, The whole point of the gospel, the whole point of them reading all that stuff was just show me how great, God and Jesus and all this stuff is. It's amazing to see that, he can perform miracles, he can cure people, he can banish demons, he can talk to the Father, all this kind of stuff, right? And I felt like younger me missed a lot of the important messages about how you're a person who can convey mercy, you're a person who can convey what it means to be or doesn't mean to be a certain way of thinking, that you being loyal to your family, you being loyal to a certain higher being, and you sticking to your values, being a good person, things like that I feel as a younger person I missed. And then looking back on it now, sometimes whenever I decide to go with my parents, and it's kind of something that I can't believe I didn't notice this, even though more or less, they kind of read the same stuff that they've been reading ever since I was like 5 years old. So it's really, really interesting to see that, I guess, as the years have gone by, my way of thinking has been more open. I don't just have that set of like tunnel vision where I only see what they're showing me on the surface. I've been trying to figure out what else there is. And I think that is very helpful, but it's also very, I wouldn't say damaging, but it's kind of, it can mess with you a bit, especially if you're someone who's had a strong belief in certain things, and then you go beyond that and you see that it'll make you question a lot of things. But I guess that can be kind of a good thing. Like I said, that's depending on every person though. I know some people, they don't want to have things questioned. They want to just say, well, yeah, this is the way it's always supposed to be. This is the way it's always been, right? Not necessarily. When you start to question things, you realize that things could be another way, or they should be another way, or why aren't they another way? And it's just something that not a lot of people are prepared to dive into, because then it makes you, like me, I don't sleep at night because this is the stuff I think about. Not necessarily saying that you're going to get insomnia because you start looking into stuff like that. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that it just makes you think more than you probably thought you ever would. I think about this kind of stuff a lot. I wonder what certain aspects of life are supposed to mean, what they're supposed to do for me, what they're supposed to show me. How am I supposed to learn from it? All these bad experiences and stuff like that. What was the point? Why did that happen? Why does it make a difference? Should it make a difference? Should it make me feel happy? Should it make me feel sad? Should I feel nothing for it at all? Is there a reason that I feel nothing at all for it? Things that I never thought I'd be thinking as a person. And I don't know if a lot of people are wanting to have that kind of mindset. I feel like my mindset is pretty open. But maybe to somebody else who's listening to this, they don't think the same thing about me, and that's fine. But I guess that's just something that I've been wanting to talk to you guys about. because it's something that I've been, like I said, it's something I always have in my mind. But I guess recently, once I started researching and looking back into some of my old philosophy topics and authors that I loved so much, that I still do, it's just something that kind of was refreshed in my mind, and I felt the need to share it with you guys. I guess that's really it. That's all I wanted to kind of convey to you guys. I know a lot of my other videos that are kind of like this, when I talk about life and death like that, I kind of try to give you a good send-off message where I tell you that, oh, you should have this kind of purpose and you shouldn't be afraid of death, or you shouldn't be afraid of living. And that's true. That's the way I think. But I know that this really wasn't related to something like that. So I guess the kind of message that I want to give you guys is that I don't think you should be afraid to think. I know a lot of people are worried about what they might find, what answers you could find or won't find. And I don't think that's something you should be scared of. Because in the end, you're going to learn one way or another. If you don't find an answer, if you do find an answer, you'll learn. That's the whole point of living. Your point of living is to learn and to experience things new every day. Every chance you get, the best thing you can do is try to learn something new. At least from my perspective, I think that is a good way of thinking it. I know I've told, my friends, my family, my girlfriend, that some of the best things you can do is learn. There's never a shortage of possibilities to learn. You can learn new things from education. You can learn things from people. You can learn things from, animals. You can learn from yourself. You learn from your mistakes. You learn from your achievements. You learn from your curiosities. There is the possibility to learn everywhere and anywhere and any time of the day. And I think that that's something that people should take advantage of. Your capability to learn is one thing that I feel is taken for granted a lot. Because if we were any type of other being, we probably wouldn't have the capability to learn the ways that we do. We learn through experiences that we have all the time. And I feel that that's something that we, as human beings, should be grateful for and take advantage of. I try my best to take advantage of it every day. I'm very observant. I'm very aware as to what's going on around me, and I try my best to see if there's anything, even the smallest things, that I could learn from. I learn a lot about people. I learn a lot about different aspects of life just by taking my time to look at people and observe people and see how they are or aren't. What makes them tick. I'm always curious about what makes a person the way they are. So, like I said, it's not I'm not trying to be a positive send-off or a negative send-off, but there's one thing I hope that you guys get from this is that I don't think you should be afraid to learn. Yes, it's very hard. It can get very worrisome. It can get very, depressing at times, depending on what you go for. It can be very agitating, especially when you're trying to learn something and it doesn't work out the first time or the second time or the 10th time or the 20th time, or you don't get it right away. I know people get really aggravated with stuff like that. They get really agitated at the fact that they can't do something right away. A lot of people want things to be done right away. You want to do it now. And I think you have to have patience with yourself. You have to have patience with the way that you are going to experience things, the way you are going to learn things. It's just something that you need to do as a person because you're only hurting yourself. You need to give yourself time to become accustomed to those ways of thinking or those ways of doing things. Like I know I've told people before, you can't expect yourself to do something right away when you've never done it, especially if it's going against something you've done your entire life. I know a great example that I use is, for some people, almost everybody, you can't expect yourself to write left-handed if you've always wrote right-handed your entire life and one day you just decided to do it. Or you can't expect yourself to do things like that. You can't it's not an instantaneous thing for a lot of people. Yeah, some people are gifted. Yeah, some people can do anything right away, and kudos to them, good for you. But not everybody's like that, so don't be afraid to learn and understand that it's going to be a bit of a struggle, but that the struggle is worth it. Because you will open yourself up to so many things. You will open yourself up to so many avenues of thought, and you will understand things that you probably never thought you'd ever understand. And I think that that's something that is very powerful to a human being. It will change the way you perceive life. It will change the way you perceive others. It will change the way you perceive yourself. And hopefully it's for the better. Hopefully I think that it'll give you a new insight, a new point of view, and a new way of maybe conveying this thing to others so they can better themselves. I feel it's one thing that is universally useful to people so that way they can help themselves. Because you can't help anybody else if you don't help yourself. I know I stumble a lot on my words, I'm sorry, but I just want to convey this message to you guys as best as I can, because I feel it's something that can help a lot of people, especially those who struggle with a lot of things by themselves. I feel like me in particular points of my life, I struggled with a lot of things on my own, so I had to be lenient with myself and understand myself and try to see where I lack or where I can grow. And I didn't have the tendencies to try to learn from other people. I had to do it on my own. So for those of you also who don't have anybody else to kind of guide you and stuff like that, it'll be okay. You can learn on your own. You don't need somebody to show you the ways, because yes, you'll fail, but from those failures, you can see what you can do better. I know for me, I had a hard time coping with failures and never amounting to things like that. But as time went on and I was able to learn from those experiences, I feel that I've gotten a lot better. I feel like I used to be a terrible communicator, and I still feel like I have a lot of room for improvement, but I feel like I can communicate at least a decent amount with you guys. Or like I was very unaware or very, I guess, asleep to a lot of things that I should have been noticing a long time ago, especially with people. I wasn't very aware of how people are when they lie or when they deceive you or when they try to use you and stuff like that. But through my life experiences, I feel like I've gotten better. Yes, I struggled, and yes, I had my fair share of being hurt or, falling down and failing. But it always led me to being where I am now. And like I said, I will continue to grow. I will continue to prosper. Hopefully, that's my outlook on it. So yeah, guys, just like I said, don't be afraid to venture out and look at life in different ways, and don't be afraid to think. Don't be afraid to have new experiences and to try to understand things in new ways, and don't be afraid to try and better yourself in new ways, and don't be afraid to do things on your own. Because if you fail, you at least know you can do it in some capacity, and you can try and get yourself past that point of failure, and you can better yourself. You can do things. I know you can, because if you couldn't, you wouldn't be able to begin doing it in the first place. Yes, some things need to be worked out, some kinks here and there, some aspects that you need to try to not look at a certain way or do a certain way, but you'll get past it. Like a lot of people just think you can do things or you can't. And I know there's been some things that I thought about that way about myself, but my girlfriend has told me differently, and I've made slight progress. I guess especially for me with one thing is I've used to be a very avid sketcher. I would love to try and draw and sketch even though they sucked. But then I had a very bad incident where I messed up my hand, and I hadn't drawn in years. Years. But my girlfriend is an artist, and it makes me reminisce on the things that I used to try to accomplish, even though they were never near what she can do. And I'd always get down on myself about it, but she kind of encouraged me to just take that push and keep trying and keep trying and keep trying. And I still do. I still think that some of my stuff sucks, even though she makes me feel better and says that I don't. But I still feel like I could be better. But I don't feel like I used to when I first, started trying to do stuff like that with her. Because I just would literally want to give up. Because I knew I had some capacity to do it, but because of my existing injuries. I just couldn't do it anymore, not the same way at least. And even back then I wasn't good, but now I'm even less than that. And but she's trying to show me how to get over that sense of it's not that good, yeah, but I could still do something. So that's why I think it's also a good way of looking at not only that, but at life. Yeah, it's not that good. Yeah, you failed at this part, but you can start it. So that means you can practice it, you can get better at it, and one day you'll be able to create your own masterpiece. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for this, I guess, episode. I really enjoyed, sharing all these thoughts with you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed listening to them. And hopefully I can get out another episode with all the other topics that I have, even if they're short, just to, share some new content with you guys, share some new ideas, some new thoughts, some new stories that I have to share, because I actually have other stories that I've been wanting to tell you guys about stuff that I've experienced, and just general things like that, or even episodes like this where I just kind of ramble on about my thoughts about life. But anyways, thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for still sticking with me through all this. I really appreciate it. I know I've been gone for a while, so it really means a lot that at least somebody's out here listening. Even one or two people, I don't mind. But just to know that somebody's here and that I have impacted somebody means a lot. So, share this and comment if you want. Let me know about any of your thoughts on any of this or anything else. Or if you have any suggestions, you can leave them down below. I'd really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care, guys. Bye.